Welcome back after the short recess. We are going to go to a delegation in a moment, and council has in front of them, I believe, the information. So I will ask Mary Lou Tanner, the senior partner for NPG Planning Solutions, to come up when she is to discuss the proposed hospital lands policy directions. Nice to have you back, Mary Lou, and just press the button for your microphone and all will be well. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Presentation is loading. So I'm pleased to be here tonight. We have achieved a pretty significant milestone in terms of the future plan for the hospital lands in the release of a draft land use plan and draft policy directions for council and the public to provide us feedback on. And we look forward to hearing from council. We look forward to hearing from the community and stakeholders and agencies. So let's just get right into it. So just for everyone who's watching at home, although I'm sure council's aware, this is the hospital lands. Sunset is just to the west of where you see the former psychiatric hospital listed on the slide. And then John Weiss Line is at the south, Fairview at the east, and the city of St. Thomas is generally to the north, and the lands are outlined in red. It includes vacant agricultural land that was a farm, as well as some of the buildings that were the former hospital. This is not moving. Okay, let's go to the next slide then, please. So earlier this year, we spent time with council in a vision workshop to develop a vision and guiding principles for the future of the hospital lands. And there were some key questions that we needed to consider and contemplate, some ideas and suggestions about how and where, how much growth would be there, what type of growth, and what a complete community would look like. This resulted in the vision and guiding principles report that council adopted on May 5th of this year. And we have used the vision and guiding principles to prepare the draft land use plan and the policy directions before you this evening. Let's go to the next slide, please. So just as a bit of a process check, and particularly for those who are new and maybe watching online, the vision workshop, as I mentioned, was held in January of this year. Since that time, there's been a significant amount of technical work that has been done by the consulting team for Central Elgin, as well as the consulting team for the province of Ontario. And that has been very informative and important inputs to what you're going to see before you tonight. So we've been able to take all of that work and coalesce it into the policy directions and land use plan, which is where we are right now. And through the fall, we will be conducting a series of discussions and open houses and inviting community feedback in order to get people's perspective on what they think, what they like, what they'd like to see changed, and generate ideas about the future for these lands. And finally, there will be an official plan amendment that will be adopted sometime in the first quarter of next year. Once we have the final policy directions approved by council, we'll develop an official plan amendment, which includes maps and policies that will be brought to you for further public consultation and finally adoption. And I should say as well that, you know, this is a very large property, and it really is an opportunity to think about how growth is going to occur, what this community is going to look like, and the things that you value and the community values in building what is essentially a brand new community. So let's go to the next slide. The vision and guiding principles were adopted by council, and they're listed here. And the vision is a thriving and inclusive place, and it's broken out into principles that talk about a distinctive community, which is a community that is really at the heart of it a series of neighborhoods that coalesce around some key defining elements to build what is distinctive, but also, going to the next principle, connected. So you'll see on the land use plan, there's connections to the arterial roads, there's connections to the city of St. Thomas and the lands north with the subdivision immediately to the north, and there's connections throughout the new community, so people can move, whether it's by car or walking or cycling, to various community facilities. They can move to get their kids to school, they can get to a community center, and they can get to and from work. There's a real focus on livability and affordability. That is a key driver of this with the growth that is coming because of the VW battery plant and the spin-off jobs that are occurring, it is really important to address the issues of livability and affordability. And that is achieved through providing a variety of housing and housing options, but it's also really paying attention to the built form, what it looks like, and how dense it is within the context of Central Elgin and being a good fit within Central Elgin. And finally, sustainability is always an important consideration, and that is achieved through a number of policies, including infrastructure policies, parks, stormwater ponds, trails, connectivity, and some low-impact development policies. We'll go to the next slide, please. So this is the draft land use plan, and I just want to start at the left, which is Sunset, and kind of move over towards Fairview, which is on the east. And just as a reminder, John Wise Line is the southern limit of this. So the big purple block at John Wise and Sunset is future institutional use. Through discussions, we were requested to hold a large area for a future institutional type of campus or use. So that would be at the intersection, essentially, of John Wise and Sunset. And it's a really good location because it has connectivity from 2 arterial roads. And you can see to the north of that purple block, there's an east-west collector that brings you into the new community, but also connects to the existing street on the west side of Sunset. The orange areas are what we call medium density housing. That's things like a bit higher density townhouse, stacked townhouse, and low-rise apartment buildings with a minimum of 3 stories. Those areas are going to provide a very great diversity of housing and a range of housing choice, which is important to addressing both livability and affordability. As we move to the north, you can see that there's some green areas. There is a limey green stormwater pond to the north. There's also key natural heritage features that have been identified in the work that the province did. And while we want to focus on connectivity, as I talked about, in this particular area, there's a bit more environmental study that needs to be done in detail to understand how we can implement that. The lighter green areas are parks, and you can see that there are a number of them throughout the community. And the circles on the map show you that everybody has a 15-minute walk to a park. As we move towards the right, you can see that the yellow areas are distinctive. They are low-density subdivisions. They will be singles, semis, and some townhouses. They are connected and adjacent to the low-density subdivision to the north, so that makes a good land use compatibility approach. And then as we move further south of that yellow area, we get into what we call the downtown Main Street area. So this is something that we talked about in January and in May about the importance of a commercial core and a downtown Main Street where you have buildings that face the street, you have at-grade retail, sometimes you have offices or housing above them. They'll be 3 to 6 stories in height, and the parking will be at the rear. So it creates a really great street environment. And then as we move further south, there's a couple of things. The blue turquoise area is a community center school area, which is important for future residents in terms of the services that they want to see in the community. It's large enough to accommodate both a community center and a school. The dark purple areas are higher density housing. That's high density housing. It will be apartments in the Central Elgin context with a height of about 8 stories, surface parking. It's not going to be the point towers or things like that that you see in big cities. This is definitely within the Central Elgin context. And then as we move further to the east, there are more parks, more low density housing, and fronting John Wise, some medium density housing as well. There's a couple of hatched areas. Those are archaeological areas that came out of the archaeological studies. Those will be protected because of what's in the ground. And it just provides a nice open space transition as well. And then finally, I just want to touch a little bit on 2 elements. You can see some of the yellow areas have hatching in them. They will be rear lane access. We really wanted to make sure that when you have a street, buildings face it. And so for those ones, because of some of the road issues and the connectivity issues, they need to be rear lane access. And then finally, let me just touch on the road network. We do have an east-west and north-south connection, but they are not straight through from the subdivision to the north to John Wise, and it's not straight through from Fairview to Sunset. They are what we call a bit of a disconnected grid, and that was done on purpose. So we're not creating long car alleys where people could just come through an intersection, step on the gas, and fly through a neighborhood. We want to make sure that people understand that this is a community where people live, where they raise children, where people move around on bikes and walking, and they want to get to and from the community in a way that provides safety. So disconnecting the grid somewhat does achieve that. There is still connections to the arterial roads, but it's just never in this plan going to be a straight shot. So we'll go to the next slide. I just want to touch on some of the key elements of the policy directions. In terms of housing in residential neighborhoods, there is, as I've described, a range of housing, and it is a range of densities. It is in the central Elgin context. It's going to be a bit more dense than what you see currently, but not overly dense and not something that would be out of character with the community. It's important to focus on some of the elements that make a complete community and provide that livability and affordability, so making sure there's a range of tenure options, that's affordable housing, rental housing, ownership housing. Really focusing on additional residential units and making sure that they are roughed in as part of the low-density housing when they're constructed. Making sure that we're dealing with innovative housing types, whether it's a cooperative housing or long-term care facilities, just ensuring that there is a range of choice for people to come to this community and grow old in this community if they choose to do so. The higher density housing is along the arterial or collector roads and adjacent to the Sunset Corridor. And the residential areas are all focused around parks, the community center and school, and just making sure that people have a good walking approach to each of those. We'll go to the next one. I've touched a fair bit on the downtown Main Street, so I don't plan to spend a lot of time on it, but it is a community focal point, and it should be a gathering place and a place where people can just get there, walk with their families, go get an ice cream, go to the bank, go to the drugstore, and it's just an easy walk from all parts of the neighborhood. So it is centrally located and at that intersection that I described. The urban design of this is actually quite important, making sure that there's doors and windows facing the street. So if you're walking up to a business, you can actually see where to get into, and also how the buildings rise to make sure that they're not overshadowing the street and they're providing really good architectural interest. As I mentioned, there'll be 3 to 6 stories, and big box retail and large retail plazas will not be permitted in this plan. The Sunset Institutional Corridor, we're in part of it right now, which is on the west side of Sunset. And there's a number of institutional uses here. They should be here. It is an arterial county road, and it's an appropriate location for them. And we want to make sure that what happens on the east side of Sunset reflects what's going on here. It will likely be more intense given that very large block that is being held for institutional uses, but it will fit within the overall parameters of the area and will make good use of those arterial roads. We'll go to the next slide, please. So just a few things about parks. As I mentioned, we've designed this so that all homes are within a 15-minute walk of a park, and that there will be connections to parks and stormwater ponds and natural areas through the street system, but also a trail system. And there will be a range of community parks provided, so different types of services can be provided in those parks. The natural heritage system has been identified over on the east side, where one of the large archaeological areas. There's also a provincially significant wetland, and those will be carried forward in the plan to be protected and be part of the community. And they do provide an opportunity to incorporate trails, but also just a nice passive recreational area where people could walk and just sit and enjoy nature. There's a number of cultural heritage and archaeology issues. I've touched on the archaeology. One of the issues with the hospital buildings is reviewing the buildings against the updated Heritage Act in Ontario and the criteria for designation. It's an update, the heritage designation bylaw. It's an important consideration in thinking through the future of those buildings and working with the Municipal Heritage Committee. And finally, we will go to the last slide. So the key next steps. This evening, we're releasing the draft land use plan through the fall consultation. We will hear from members of the community, agencies. We welcome council's input and feedback, and we will incorporate that and be back with you in December for a final land use plan and policy directions. And then the official plan amendment text and mapping will be prepared in the first quarter of next year. There will be more public consultation on that, including public meetings before council, so you can hear from the community as well. And I will say lastly, we welcome feedbacks and comments. Please, no one should wait to a formal open house or public meeting or a stakeholder workshop. If you have questions, concerns, comments, please reach out to us at any time. Our doors are always open. Thank you.
Many thanks, Mary Lou, for the presentation. Interesting to see with the red circles that that's 15 minutes walk to a park is what you said?
That's correct, yes.
Interesting. Any questions or comments from council for Mary Lou, please? Councillor Griffin.
Thank you so much for this, Mary Lou, through you. My question was about our Main Street. I was reading through the draft policy that we're going to be putting out, and I see that we're anticipating not being able to have all uses ready immediately, which makes sense. And it was specifically noted that, for example, we're not planning to have a grocery store immediately available. So we plan to allow interim uses in this policy. And the interim uses might, for example, allow businesses to act as grocers until we have a grocery store, but then not afterward. That makes sense to me, and that area certainly is a food desert, and I would like to see food available, but I'm worried, what do we do with policy to make sure that we're not preying on small businesses that come in with small grocery stores when we have a specific intention then to bring something in that will kill them?
So thank you for the question. It's a matter of finding the balance with those businesses. We don't want to prey on small business. We don't want to prey on people who invest in this community and start their business and grow their business. It's about managing through the process. We manage in some ways through zoning, through size of use and permissions, such as, you know, a food market and just how big it can be, and then how big the grocery store can be. And sometimes it means putting a minimum size on the grocery store. So you have a place and a space for the smaller business and a place and a space for the grocery store. And you can do that through zoning.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Through Mayor to Mary Ellen, and more so to about the grocery store comment, we're going to be servicing a large percentage of people here, but in Central Elgin, we don't have large grocery stores. Like Belmont doesn't have a large one. Port Stanley has one that's adequate for Port Stanley, but I realize that they're saying no big box stores, but there is a need for a large grocery store, I would say, in this area to service a lot of folks when we're thinking about groceries. Sorry, should that be reconsidered about the big box store possibly being on the outskirt of this area to service that need? This is something I heard.
Mary Lou, please.
Yeah, thank you. So it's certainly something we can look at. The market research that was done indicated about a 40,000 square foot grocery store, not the 100,000 square foot big box, large chains that you can see in some of the highway commercial areas and in other communities. There is a place for what I would call a mid-sized grocery store, which is around that 40,000 square foot space. They can be highly successful. They need people living around them. That is the key driver for the success of that commercial. And within the amount of space that we've identified, there is an ability to provide that size of grocery store. Would it be 100,000 square feet? No, but the market studies are telling us 100,000 square feet wouldn't survive there. It would be too big, and it would be too land intensive. But there is absolutely a way to deliver a larger format grocery store in that downtown Main Street.
Thank you. Supplementary, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor, just a thought with that though, that grocery store would probably be servicing Union, Sparta, possibly Southhold in some levels. Would it be better for that box store to be on the outer edge, like along number 4 Highway, Sunset, or John Wise, instead of in the center of this? Because we all deal with speeding and traffic and all these things. So if you have say a 40,000 square foot grocery store, you're going to need more parking than that. I'm just wondering if we need to just kind of think that one through a little bit, or if it's left kind of flexible in the language that it might be an option.
We'll certainly look at both of those options as we go through the fall consultation and get the feedback. Absolutely.
Thank you. And we do have a meeting coming up for an open house, correct? Right. Anything else from the council? Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor, just one other question when we're looking at let me just check my note. Like First Nations being consulted on archaeological sites, has there been a stages 1 through 3? Have those been done? Are they available?
Those reports have been done by the province, yes, and in some instances, stage 4 archaeology was done. So that's how those 2 archaeological sites towards the east of the property were determined. One is, sorry, my apologies, one is European, and the other is First Nations.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming in for this evening, and we look forward to seeing you, I guess, in October.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to the adoption of minutes, if I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Griffin, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Griffin, that the minutes for the regular meeting of council dated Monday, September 8th, 2025 be adopted.
Questions or comments on the minutes, please? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Correspondence requiring action, a memorandum about the Elgin County OPP Detachment Board from Ms. Leach. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that the memorandum regarding Elgin County OPP Detachment Board Administrative Services proposal dated September 22nd, 2025 be received.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? I didn't see your hand, Councillor. You'll have to put it up a little higher. Councillor Graham.
Just wondering what the option would be if we weren't doing this, if we didn't provide that admin.
Ms. Leach?
Mayor Sloan, through to Councillor Graham, another of Elgin County's local municipalities would need to provide that service, or there could be alternatives from my understanding. But as mentioned, the County of Elgin is no longer able to provide that service as an upper tier.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Graham.
So are other municipalities within the county of Elgin considering this as well?
Councillor, or Ms. Leach.
Thank you, Mayor Sloan. Through to Councillor Graham. I am not aware of whether any other municipalities are considering it. I would note that Central Elgin is one of the municipalities required by legislation to have an appointee to the board, which we do. So we play a sustained and active role in that board, just for note for council. Other municipalities have more of a regional appointee that can change over time, and it's combined between, for example, the eastern municipalities or the western municipalities, whereas Central Elgin always has one representing our municipality.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. On to reports. Director of Planning and Engineering Services, DPE 0625, Formal Hospital Lands Official Plan Amendment Process. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Griffin, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Griffin, that the draft policy directions and land use map set out in Schedules 1 and 2 of Staff Report DPE 625 be approved for community and stakeholder engagement purposes, and that staff be directed to report back to Council with a summary of input received and a final policy directions and land use plan for consideration.
Questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Moving on, Director of Public Works and Community Services, replacement of water meters. Request for proposal. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that the request for proposals for the replacement of water meters be cancelled, and that the replacement of water meters project be considered as part of the 2026 water wastewater capital budget.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Graham's kind of got her hand up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Alex. I thought this was covered through a grant program that the government was paying for it.
Welcome, Mr. Piggott.
Thank you, Mayor Sloan. There is, and it's probably best answered by Dave, our treasurer.
Thanks, Alex. Yes, the 2024 budget did set out $900,000 to be funded from OSIF grant. When we did our OSIF reporting, OSIF refused to accept that application, and we were forced to use OSIF funds for tax-funded capital projects and flip that from tax-funded to, or sorry, from OSIF funded to tax-funded.
Sure, supplementary.
And sorry, when we were going through the budget, when did they refuse that? Because I thought when we were going through the budget process last year, whenever it was, it was still on the board.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That would have been reported in 2025. So we report OSIF funding as we actually use it. So that would have happened in 2025 when we submitted the report saying that we're going to use that for water meter replacement. They come back and said, no, you're not.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Piggott. All those in favor of the report? Opposed? And that's carried. Bylaw to confirm the proceedings. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Griffin, Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Griffin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble, that bylaw 2025-47 be read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
All those in favor? Opposed? If I get a mover and a seconder for adjournment, please. Councillor Griffin, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Griffin, seconded by Councillor Watson, that the special meeting of council dated Monday, September 22nd, 2025 be adjourned at 6:26 p.m., with the next meeting to be scheduled for Monday, October 6, 2025 at 7:00 p.m.
Thank you. All those in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attending.